Welcome back. So, just a quick announcement. So at 6:20, there's going to be a screening of Vitalik and Ethereum Story at the Captain Ethereum stage just behind me. So be sure to check that out. Next up, we have Iris Radoi and Nate Fikru from DIN of Consensys with Decentralized Infrastructure Network, DIN, a journey as an Eigenlayer AVS.
Hey everybody. All right, so my name is Nate Fikru. We have Iris right here. She's getting her mic connected.
Mic check.
Okay, I got you.
Okay, are good. Can everybody hear me? Okay, sweet, thank you. All right, cool. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Iris, as Nate said, and I'm a product owner at Infura, working on our decentralized protocol, Decentralized Infrastructure Network, or for short, DIN. And besides me, I've got Nate, who is our lead engineer, and together we're going to dive into our journey with DIN as an Eigenlayer AVS, and really and truly how we're evolving Infura's legacy into building a truly decentralized Web3 infrastructure marketplace. So, today, we'll kick things off with a few DIN essentials, what it is, why it matters, and who is behind it. And then we're going to move into some marketplace basics. And then I'm going to hand it over to Nate, who is going to dive a bit deeper into the crux and nitty-bitty details of DIN as an AVS. And then we're going to move on looking beyond our next few milestones that we've got in place. All right, so first things first, what is DIN? It is a permissionless marketplace for Web3 infrastructure where we connect providers with gateways for delivering RPCs, APIs, blockchain data to developers across a variety of blockchains. Since ETHDenver last year, where we started off with offering support for one service, we've made a tremendous amount of progress, and I'm happy to say that now, a year later, we do offer support for 30 networks, and we're also serving over 100 million daily requests on our network. And this wouldn't have been possible without the support and the enthusiasm of the entire RPC community. So we're very thankful for the support we've received from the providers who have partnered with us. So currently, we have 50 partners onboarded onto the marketplace and 15 providers who are actively serving traffic, aka the 100 million requests I just mentioned earlier. So this is really done by design because we're really trying to build this in a sustainable way where we are ensuring top performance for the users as well as economic viability for the providers. So we are working on onboarding more and more providers as it makes sense. And we are doing this in a fashion in which we can ensure that the network stays reliable, it's scalable, and it's also providing the quality of service and the great user experience that we're building towards. And with this, I just want to say that DIN is not just building for scaling, but we're really taking our time and we're building a decentralized backbone with purpose. So now I just want to dive a bit deeper into why we started doing this in the first place. So I'm just going to throw a few stats at you quickly. So in the beginning of 2024, cloud service provider outages spiked to about 27%. So if you really think about it, what that means is in some way, shape, or form, some companies lost a lot of money and there was some really bad user experience for a period of time. Also, at the same time, we have about 63% of devs that cited that reliable infrastructure is a top bottleneck in their development process. So with these things in mind, we can kind of sort of see the pattern as to why we're starting to build DIN. The RPC space is blowing up. There's new chains popping left and right, and everyone's trying to get in, to be the first one to serve the chain, to get on the trend. And this is cool, but as a single team building RPC services, you face a lot of challenges because number one, you need to make sure that you provide top service quality. Number two, you need to make sure that you're economically viable and sustainable yourself, and you're also staying competitive across the hundreds of chains that like are appearing on the market. So really and truly, we are finding ourselves in the famous saying that people are looking for the jack of all trades, but as we all know, this is followed by being the master of none. And with this in mind, this is really where DIN comes in, because what we're really doing is we're offering RPC providers and single teams the opportunity to really focus on what they're good at, and then being able to join a marketplace where they can shine through, and gateways can tap into these providers who are specialized in their specific area of expertise, and they can quickly onboard chains to offer that sort of user experience where you get the jack of all trades and the master of all trades. So now I just want to quickly move into who is behind DIN and who are the actors in our network. So I've mentioned a few times already in this presentation the term gateways. So these are entities that buy resources from the network and they sell it to their customers. So our first onboarded gateway is Infura, who, by using DIN, is providing access to its customers to chains such as Starknet, Blast, Manto, and Unichain, just to name a few. Next, we've got the node providers. These are really the building blocks of the network because they are the ones running the services that everyone is going to buy. And the great thing is that being a gateway and being a node provider are not mutually exclusive. So you can run the services that you're good at, you can put them up in DIN, and then you can also tap into the marketplace yourself to onboard chains and services for which you don't really want to deal with the problems and the headaches of running this in-house. And last but not least, we have the watchers, which is a key component into our ecosystem because they are the ones who are publishing insightful reports about the performance of node providers, and they're really ensuring that the quality of service is there from the moment where we onboard the provider, where we run benchmarks to make sure that they are up to par per the standard for the network, and also continuously monitoring the performance of the network as it is live. Cool. So before I'm going to hand over to Nate to go into a bit more technical details, I just want to do a few quick marketplace basics with everyone. So the easiest way to think about this is just to take a real-world example. So let's just think about the farmer's market. What do you have to do in order to make this successful and to make sure that people show up? So first and foremost, you do need to have a location where the market is going to take place. Next, you do need to have suppliers, aka in our case, local growers, who are going to come to the market to sell their goods. And the reason why they do this is because they don't have to go out and individually look out for customers to sell to, because they know that by going to the market, they're going to have customers coming to them. Then, once they come to the market, usually what happens is they would have to pay a fee in order to get access to a stall in the market where they can sell their goods. And then, once the market starts, you normally have customers who kind of just browse around and they mix and match and find, one thing from one provider that they like, another one from a different provider. So, in a nutshell, if we abstract this sort of real-world example and we take it into our world, into the DIN world, things work kind of very similar. So in our case, the marketplace is DIN itself. So this is the location where everyone kind of gathers to sell their goods. And you have a series of watchers and gateways who are getting onboarded onto the marketplace in order to sell their services. And normally what happens is they would pay an amount of capital in order to take part in the network to ensure that they have the sort of stall to be able to showcase their services that they have available. And then once the market is open, you would have customers coming in, and then they would pick and mix what they like from you, whether that's like your price, your speed, your performance, and it's really a mix of all of these things. And then the real difference between the farmer's market and the DIN marketplace is that DIN is going to be running 24/7. You can always tap in, you can tap out. Things are always going to be updating, and with this, I'm going to hand over to Nate, who's going to go into a few more details about DIN as an AVS.
Thank you, Iris. Thank you so much for that amazing overview of DIN and what we do every day. So my job is to pretty much tell you guys what we're trying to do with DIN as an AVS and why it makes sense. So to begin off, DIN started in a federated state. So that's pretty much the idea of a small group of really trusted operators running the traffic through our system. So that was the intention of DIN, though, was to always be moving towards a continuously decentralized model. So we wanted to take steps from a federated state into more and more decentralized as we get bigger and we increase our experience within the space doing what we're doing. So with that being said, what we want to do is utilize Eigenlayer to actually plug into Ethereum's security, the security that Ethereum actually gives you at the bottom layer. And we do this via restaking. I'm sure you guys have heard about what restaking is. So as a result, we actually don't need to run our own validators with DIN. We can piggyback off of Eigenlayer's protocol and what they already have set up. And this also aligns with us when it comes to staking, because with Eigenlayer, because staking is built in, we have a framework for essentially putting in rewards, slashing, and that sort of thing, depending on service. So to talk about what the components of an AVS are, especially with DIN, we have operator sets. These are kind of any entity within our network that's going to be staking. So these are most likely going to be our providers, at least in our beginning phase. And they're essentially going to be offering services. So that, for example, they could potentially be offering Polygon services within DIN. So that would essentially be considered an operator set. Next, you have a quorum. So this is actually a subset of operators that are running within DIN, and we differentiate them by essentially what rule set they're running under. So they might be running essentially staking for a specific token, for example, like a specific restake ETH or maybe another type of token. So that's what a quorum is. With this entire system, we have rewards and we also have slashing. So with rewards, we incorporate the ability to reward our operators based on the performance that they're actually giving to the network. So if they're giving good performance and they're not doing anything, wrong, and they're good actors, they have the ability to actually gain, rewards in the form of a token of their choosing for being good actors on the actual protocol. And then lastly, we have the concept of slashing. So like opposite of rewards, we actually are incorporating slashing in multiple different types, and I'll explain that in a second. But in a nutshell, it's essentially a penalty for misbehavior. So staking and slashing on DIN. So this is kind of a core concept of why we wanted to move DIN onto Eigenlayer. So they make it really easy to stake, like I mentioned, and to get any sort of token pairing that you want as a staker. Staking can also be tied to the actual performance, the amount of traffic that an operator would actually want to receive. So we are actually going to cap that off at 20% of traffic by default based on how much stake they're contributing, because we don't want anybody on the network to be too overpowered. But we do want to incentivize operators to stake more. So like I mentioned, there's kind of two different ways that slashing happens. So we have the concept of a minor slashing event. This is kind of like an operating returning back like a 400 response, maybe longer latency times, that sort of thing. These aren't major events to the point where we want to, we just want to reduce the amount of traffic that actually goes to that specific operator. So it can act as a slashing event, but it's not actually slashing in the traditional sense of the term. Whereas a major slashing event, this is more of the traditional, the operator does something like extremely wrong on the network, for example, returning data of a different network or a different blockchain, and this is where their stake actually gets slashed. So I think we're thinking around the 3% slashing rate, but that can vary once we're live. Excuse me. And lastly, we have the concept of a veto committee that comes out of the box with Eigenlayer. Our operators can appeal any sort of slashing event if they think that something wrong has happened. And we have a group of top operators within the network that are going to review that entire system. So we've been building DIN as an AVS for around the last 6 months, starting from the federated state and slowly building it out as a decentralized format. We were lucky enough to be able to partner with Altlayer and Eigenlayer to help us architect the system. We work with them directly and very closely, and they've been able to help us integrate the actual middleware and contracts that are in place. And this work has been ongoing for about the last 3 months. We've been able to build custom logic specifically for DIN regarding the staking, onboarding, verification, etc. And lastly, we're still in the process of building, but once we're a little bit further down the road, we'll be going through an auditing phase where we'll audit some of the smart contracts within our Consensys diligence team, as well as the Eigenlayer team will be auditing, and of course we'll most likely have other third-party auditors going through our contracts as well.
All right, so looking beyond, as you see, we've got a very interesting looking roadmap where we don't really have exact timelines of the milestones that we're trying to hit. I think, as we've seen in the past week, things are very unpredictable in the ecosystem that we're working. Testnets where you're developing can always break, and you don't always have control over this. So we're very close to launching our first AVS ephemeral testnet, and we are, as I mentioned earlier, we're doing this in a way where we're very calculated and we want to make sure that we do things right. So we have at least 3 ephemeral testnets that we're looking to launch in a phased approach, and from each release we're going to take learnings and we're going to test different criteria.
We also will soon be launching a beta program to add new gateways onto DIN. Right now, our main gateway is Infura, and that's our alpha gateway, but eventually we'll be growing our gateway list very soon.
And again, all these things are happening in parallel, so you can imagine as we're working on the beta program for the gateways, we're launching like our ephemeral testnets, and also we're going to reach a point where we will have a mainnet launch for AVS, which is going to really bring us closer to the decentralized experience that we want to offer providers.
And we'll also be starting off with a command line interface essentially to integrate with DIN, but we'll eventually want to have an actual application, a web app that operators can use to onboard, verify themselves, as well as network participants can kind of see the overall health of DIN.
And last but not least, the cherry on top, obviously we're relentlessly working on building a DIN foundation, as this is very aligned with our ethos to decentralize the network. And again, this is a milestone that we're working towards building as soon as possible.
And while all of this is going on, we're constantly adding new networks and new services to what we offer at DIN. Like Iris said earlier, we offer about 30 different services right now, but that number is just going to keep going up.
Hey, in a year, who knows? It's going to be 100 plus.
Who knows?
So last but not least, we do want to thank all of our providers and our partners who have really helped us bring this vision to life. Specifically, we've been working very closely with Compare Nodes, with the Rivet team, with Altlayer, with Eigen, and with all our RPC providers who have joined the network from the beginning of our journey. And just a few technicalities. I did throw some numbers earlier. They're not out of thin air, so I do have a few articles if you want to dive deeper into kind of what I said in regards to the class service provider spikes and stuff like that. And last but not least, if you do follow along on our journey, we try to make this as easy as we can for you. So give us a scan, give us a follow, give us a like, subscribe, all of that jazz. And thank you so much for the time.
Yeah, thank you, everybody,
for being here. And we wish you a happy conference.
Have a good rest of your weekend.